Christian Fuller Speedrun World Records. Wow, is it so big? Christian journey is so big like this that we need a speedrun video. I don't remember who suggested me this. I'm sorry. I'm really is. And I think it was even on general chat that someone on the Discord that someone suggested this to me, but I forgot the name. The channel is BigBoy Meatl0af. So yeah, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and let's have some fun, I believe.
On the 24th of February 1982, Christian Weston Chandler was born as Christopher Weston Chandler. Parents Robert Franklin Chandler Jr. and Barbara Ann Weston in Martha Jefferson Hospital, Virginia. One of Chris's earliest memories was being locked in a dark room at 18 months old by an abusive babysitter named Roach, which he claimed was the event that caused his autism.
This would have lasting consequences.
Oh, he has autism. No, I'm not joking. He has autism for real? I don't know. I know nothing about Christian. Only that video that I did a reaction with you guys before about he being arrested by the cops and etc.
This event also caused him to be a mute for the next 6 years. When Chris was 2 years old, he would meet his original gal pal, Sarah Hammer. In 1987, Chris would attend Greene County Primary School, where he would then leave in 1990 to attend Nathaniel Greene Elementary School, where he would have the most traumatic experience of his life. Chris claimed while he was there, he would be abused by staff members. He recalls times where he'd be pinned to the ground by multiple staff members, and his cries were recorded, and later was forced to sit on his homosexual principal's lap and listen to him say inappropriate and offensive things to him. Chris would then leave Nathaniel Greene to be homeschooled. In 1991, Sonic the Hedgehog would be released, beginning Chris's lifelong.
At least he had the option of having like of being homeschools because this is here it's an option to anyone.
In 1992, he would change his name from Christopher to Christian after a bear animatronic at the mall mistakenly called him Christian. Chris took this as a sign from God.
Different.
In 1993, Chris would attend Providence Middle School, and later that year would win the Sonic the Hedgehog Washington sweepstakes, becoming the first of his many TV appearances. 1996 would be an eventful year for Chris. He would begin attending Manchester High School, where he claimed he had the best years of his life. It was also around this time where he would create his first ever original character, Bionic, after being hit in the head with a basketball at school. Also in that year, the Pokemon franchise would be released in North America, beginning another of Chris's lifelong obsessions. In 1998, he began to use the internet to spread his creations by launching his first website, Quick's Pokesite. Quick being a word based on his initials CWC. In 2000, Chris would turn 18 years old, and on March of that year, the world would be changed forever. Chris was tasked with creating an album cover for his computer graphics class. One of the requirements was he couldn't use any copyrighted characters, so to avoid copyright, he would combine his two greatest obsessions, Sonic and Pikachu, creating the infamous Sonic! Sorry, I couldn't contain my excitement. In late 2000, Chris would graduate high school, losing contact with nearly all his friends. In September of 2000, Chris would begin attending Piedmont, Virginia Community College, studying computer-aided drafting and design. In October, he would launch his first website dedicated to Sonichu, Quick's Sonichu site. And later that winter, the prized historical artifact known as the Sonichu Medallion would be created. In 2003, Chris would realize begin his love quest, a journey that's destination would be getting a girlfriend. To find his boyfriend-free girl, he would create something called the attraction sign, which would hang around campus that read, "Seeking an 18 to 21-year-old single female companion," along with his contact information. Eventually, the Dean of Student Services, Mary Lee Walsh, came into contact with Chris and tore it down on the grounds that Chris was soliciting sex. This caused Chris to swag the fuck out. Later, Chris would create the first ever comic involving his characters, known as Sonichu number 0, which is the first issue, even though it says the 0th issue on it. For some reason, Chris formats his comic really weirdly. Each issue has multiple episodes to it, but the number doesn't reset like chapters in a book. No, it doesn't fucking do that, because that'd make too much sense. So you have episodes where it's episode 19, which is also part of issue 9, if that makes any sense. There are also sub-episodes which are unrelated stories about Chris's life. Issue 0 details the origin of Sonichu, who is created when Super Sonic collides with Pikachu while fighting the perfect chaos monster from Sonic. Chris also writes a sub-episode, which is about a real-life encounter with mall security, which Chris calls Jerk Hops, where they get mad at him for apparently soliciting. This is based on a real event that happened in real life. In July of 2003, Chris began trying to find women at his local mall by holding his attraction sign and sitting in a populated area. Later at the game place, he would meet a new gal pal known as Megan Schroeder, who he would try to win over in various Quagmirian ways. In September, Chris would be arrested and banned from his local mall because his means of getting a girlfriend were deemed as soliciting. Later, he would be suspended from PVCC for the same reasons. On February 5th of 2005, Anna McLaren wrote a blog post about seeing Chris at the mall known as The Tale of the Crazy Pacer, making it the first ever documentation of Chris online that didn't come from Chris himself. On the 29th of March, Chris would be approached by a woman named Hannah at the mall, where she would ask him out on a date as a joke. Eventually, Chris found out Hannah was never actually interested in him. After confronting her and realized the truth, Chris let out a big NO! Terrifying
Don't tell me.
which led him to being banished from the mall once again. On his 25th birthday in 2007, Chris would create his iconic future message video. During this time, Chris would be getting especially with Megan. Chris would enter the Chop Chop Master Onions Rapid Showdown contest online in hopes of winning a trip to Seattle, which he planned on taking Megan to. Chris would try to ensure his victory in this contest by emailing everyone he's ever met, telling them to vote in his contest, and staying up all night making dumb accounts to rig the voting. On August 3rd, the results of the contest were released, and the winner turned out to be a man by the name of Adam Stackhouse.
My god.
This for some reason gave
wait,
Chris
how do you know that? What?
And caused him to make a bunch of videos threatening Adam Stackhouse. On the 26th of October 2007, Chris was found by the Something Awful forums, introducing the world to Chris Chan. Shortly after, an Encyclopedia Dramatica page was created to compile all the information discovered about Chris on Something Awful. Encyclopedia Dramatica is a site that's meant to be like Wikipedia, but as foul and as offensive as possible. So when Chris saw it,
he was not pleased.
To make matters worse, Chris and his characters had become the new thing to make fun of on 4chan's V-board, leading a man by the name of Evan Christopher George to start sending Chris gay fan art the boards have been making about him. Chris, being the Aryan that he is, was not pleased by this fan art. In response to seeing so much gay fan art of his characters, Chris would have a brilliant idea. He would draw straight porn of his characters. One image being of Chris himself known as JPEG. He was eventually identified as his friend Megan.
This would have lasting consequences.
3 months later, in March of 2008, Megan discovered she came from quote.jpg and was understandably horrified and cut all ties with Chris shortly after. Also in August, a group of trolls came together under the alias of Blanco Weiss to catfish Chris Chan and trick him into sending them his medallion. In October, trolls posing as Blanco would receive the Sonichi medallion in the mail from Chris and film a video destroying it. After going on hiatus from releasing new comics, trolls would inform Chris that a boy named Ryan Cash had killed himself after hearing that he would creating Sonichu comic. This of course being completely made up just to fuck with Chris. In early January, Chris would meet a woman named Julie online and quickly start a relationship with her, even though he was already in another troll relationship at the time with the user named Panda Halo. It was around this time that Chris would soon become aware of his new arch nemesis known as Clyde Cash, brother of Ryan Cash. In February, Chris had learned that Panda Halo had apparently died in a bushfire in Australia, which Chris seemed to get over really quickly, immediately moving on to date Julie. Towards the end of the month, Chris learned that the trolls had formed a group called the Miscreants that dedicated to ensuring Chris would never get laid. On the 24th, the Miscreants would inform Chris they had captured Julie and were sending her to China. So in response, Chris would make the 400-mile journey to Cleveland, Ohio to save Julie. When he reached the address of Julie's house, he finds an old rundown house with no relation to Julie at all. The 3rd of March would go down in Chris as possibly the worst ever day of Chris's life. Julie's fake brother, who was voiced by the same troll as Julie, would hack into Chris's PSN account to use his blackmail for Chris. Chris would join a mumble chat with Max to negotiate with him giving back his PSN, but Chris was forced to shove his Sonic medallion up his ass while being recorded. Later, the troll posing as Julie would audio call Chris on mumble and reveal himself to Chris. After having his heart broken by another fake online girlfriend, Chris would link up with a new fake girlfriend, this being Emily, who's actually played by a real girl this time, which is kind of a step up, I guess.
Oh god.
And Chris would plan a date at Charlottesville Fashion Square. Chris actually stood her up because his parents were fighting over if she was real or not. They then rescheduled the date to take place 2 days later. Chris unknowingly falling right into her plan. Chris would meet up with Ivy, accompanied by his dad for some fucking reason. When suddenly, the man in the pickle suit would descend from the heavens to cuck Chris, taking Emily from him. On the 17th of March, another fake new love interest named Ivy would reach out to Chris asking for a shout out, which would quickly lead to a relationship forming between the two of them. For some fucking reason, Chris ramped up the creepiness by about 10 notches with her.
Hi, Ivy. I love you.
Remember, all this happened in the span of about a month,
what
and
the
Chris was
fuck?
with 3 different
He's
women.
already
What an
becoming
absolute fucking pimp. A troll would message
Become
Chris
a
pretending to be
fame.
Vanessa Hudgens, and they had e-sex. Ivy found out they had e-sex and got mad at Chris, so Chris in response proposed to Ivy. Eventually, Chris would realize Ivy was a troll and return to his old methods of attracting women in public. In June, Chris would go to a local bar with the troll Kim Wilson, who, side note, is played by the same troll as Emily. Chris somehow saw both personas in real life and in
guys, I have to say this. We are having fun now, and it is so fucking fun. But at the same time, we like I just realized by listening to his story, like the guy has suffered many more traumas than a normal person usually has, and like most of them were already on the early stages of his life. This really messes the mind of someone. We know that. But even so, oh my god, even so, like, and as I could notice, like, one thing leads to another. The more weird he was becoming, the more would be difficult for him to sustain new relations with another woman. And the worse it would be becoming ever since, and not only that, but with women in general, but relation with everyone around him, like social experiences and all. And it's a pile of shit, like it's shit over shit all the time, like forever. And he keeps getting worse and worse and worse. Oh my God, this is, wow. But it is still fun. It is still fun. And even though, like, oh my God, I sometimes I'm not sure if what I'm going to say now is right or wrong. It really depends, but it's really complicated. But it's how I say sometimes, like, well, life isn't like just black and white. Because if we start to think like this, it's so much dangerous as well. Like, if we think like, so nothing that he has become is actually his fault because of what he suffered as a kid. So you literally take responsibility out of like most of the people nowadays, because everyone nowadays has like it's the role. It's not everyone, but it's like the majority nowadays doesn't have like healthy parents, you know, in a healthy life and environment. Most of people have messed up families. Nowadays, this is the role. So so because of that, you will not be able to blame any of them in the future when they become like very terrible adults. You know, then that's a complicated statement. So even though he passed through all of this, I don't think it's wrong for us to laugh about it, because in the end, he became an adult, and it's all like his life choices after that. Like, yeah, it's consequences of his own actions. Even though he had previous problems in his childhood, it doesn't matter. Society will expect things of you. It doesn't matter what problems you had, you know. But at the same time, and you see that I'm trying to be the most fair as possible. At the same time, I don't feel right I'm saying that when I had like even though I have too many hardships and difficulties in my life, most of them, a huge amount of them are financially, but I had all the support that my parents could give me, and I didn't had like any type of problems like Christian had, for example. Not even close to that, like not even one, like, you know. Yeah, like it's complicated. So I don't think I don't know, it's really difficult. Yeah, life is really messy, and we never know. I mean, for some things we're quite sure of what is right or wrong, but things like this are really complicated. Should you make a person like him take responsibility for all of his actions, even though he had a very terrible childhood experience, you know? I mean, it's complicated, but even so, that's how it is, because if you let things run like run just easy like that, like everyone will just become like terrible creatures, you know. It cannot be like that.
Person, no. And somehow didn't realize that they were the same person.
But
playing
yeah, let's
characters.
keep having
fun. It would
fun.
take Chris 11 years to realize the woman behind both personas was a troll. Chris would continue going to bars with Kim Wilson and would land a date with a fat woman who would ghost him after their first interaction. In mid-July, Chris would have the brilliant idea to troll the trolls. He would attempt to get them to think he was actually playing a character this whole time, and that Kristen West and Chandler was never a real person. He'd do this by uploading a video where he pretends to be a normal person known as Rollin' and Trollin'. This is what Chris thinks a normal person looks like. Later, a man who fans would dub Liquid Chris would begin uploading videos to YouTube pretending to be Chris and would claim he made lots of money off the Sonic Shoe franchise.
Chris was not pleased
And would make the first of many videos manically screeching about Liquid, which eventually would start a back and forth
Sonic
Shoe
medallion.
The real Chris starts the Sing Star Challenge, which is a singing competition whose winner will be dubbed the real Chris.
Chris would lose.
Even Chris is shit at being Chris. As the rivalry between the two Chris's continues, it became more and more apparent that Chris is doing this in an attempt to steal Liquid Chris's girlfriend Casey, who is fat and I don't like. Towards the end of August, we would possibly get my favorite favorite bit of Chris lore ever made. Chris would upload the usual video to his channel screaming about trolls and shit. But eventually people would notice something unusual about the video. Halfway through, the door opens and suddenly cuts to a few seconds later. So people were wondering what happened that Chris had to cut out. And it did not disappoint. In the uncut video, Bob walks in and starts yelling at Chris about getting that goddamn stuff off of there and fast. Yet at the end of 2009, Chris would start answering mailbags, which revealed Chris's hatred towards people with Asperger's syndrome. During this time, trolls would start adding gay ads to the Wikipedia, which rustled Chris's jimmies. In fact, Chris's jimmies were so rustled that he sent a letter to Obama himself to try to get the United States government to ban the ads. Alec Benson Leary would begin creating a comic known as Asperchew to piss off Chris, and Chris would declare war against Asperchew. In late January, Chris revealed that he had actually managed to befriend a real-life woman who will be known as the Wallflower for reasons that I will reveal later.
What? This voice makes it weird to understand.
And it was released in February. Issue 10 was probably one of the most deranged issues in the entire series. It involves Chris curing the world of homosexuality by using his own blood. Later in the comic, Chris sentences real-life trolls to death in various gory ways. In March, Chris created a Little Big Planet level which contained the Wallflower's real name, which led her getting doxxed and harassed.
And he doesn't stop getting weird and weird.
In the first place. In April, Chris began a relationship with another troll named Jackie. That same month, Chris made a holy pilgrimage to the game place to attempt to get unbanned by the owner, Michael Schneider. Upon hearing Schneider didn't want him back,
Christian had more girlfriends than a lot of guys actually have. Like, isn't that fun? Like, there is a lot of guys like complaining out there that don't have girlfriends. Even though, of course, he had very terrible relationships with all of them. I'm not. I don't know the details, but they weren't like last long, and they were very fast. I believe because look at how many he had. It's impossible that any of these like lasted for long. So it's complicated, but at the same time, it's fun. Like people are always complaining that it's hard to have girlfriend and all of this stuff. But look at Christian. Oh my God.
Chris awakened his ancient Yamnaya tribe sorcery, also known as
anti-Semitism.
In June, Chris got drunk and felt the
Chris tries to prove that if you still have doubt, if you never had a girlfriend and you dream to have one or something like that, because I know that some people still want to have relations, man and woman. Chris tries to prove that you can, Now, if it will last, it will depend on you and her. And stories telling us, like majority of people is telling us that they are not lasting long, for real. So yeah, I would not say to you expect that, but yeah, it's not that hard as you can see.
Chris had the brilliant idea to go to the game place and take a picture of Michael Schneider to use as a dartboard. Michael noticed Chris trying to take a photo of him and chased him outside to his car where he nearly hit.
The difficulty lies on you have a healthy relationship, and this is very scarce. It's very like almost non-existent. This is the problem.
Around this time, Chris and Jackie's relationship would grow even stronger. Though a new foe was on the horizon, Jackie's ex-boyfriend Lars was a buff ghetto black guy who was obsessed with toy boats. Chris soon after would start uploading videos attacking Lars. Towards the end of 2010, Chris for the 6th time that year would attempt to leave the internet. While he was gone from the internet, his home life would get even worse. In March, Chris emailed Jackie claiming to be a tomgirl.
This would have lasting consequences.
In May of 2011, Chris would join a troll-created forum called
Lasting Consequences.
Chris spent most of his time on the internet. In June, Chris revealed that he started using the women's restroom. Chris's tomgirl phase did not go over well with his parents. Bob called him a fat, and Barb threatened to kill him. On September 6th, Chris's father would pass away due to heart failure. After Bob's passing, the trolling of Chris would die down for the time being.
Oh my
the
God.
only person left to troll Chris would be Chris himself. On the 4th of April, Chris revealed he finally lost his virginity to a prostitute on the site Backpage, which was shut down by the FBI for sex trafficking.
What? Wait. He had many girlfriends at all this time and he lost virginity to a prostitute like just now? Like, what? Am I missing something? There is something wrong? Oh God, my head is messy. I don't know, man.
Oops. Chris's internet activity at the end of 2012 and early 2013 would be minimal, with only small amounts of Facebook activity. On the 10th of January 2014, Chris's fucking house would burn down. After the house fight, the earlier signs of the Chandler's terrible financial situation would become more and more apparent. In August, Chris would come out as a lesbian-identified male / cross-dressing tranny. His words.
what lesbian identified male? What female? What? No, I need to listen again because my brain just coded
It's not mine. It's supposed to come out as a lesbian housewife. The earlier signs of the Chandler's terrible financial situation would become more and more apparent. In August, Chris would come out as a lesbian-identified male / cross-dressing tranny. His words, not mine. On the 18th, Chris would announce that Facebook new girlfriend named
lesbian
Catherine. Do I even need to elaborate
male.
at this point? It's a fucking troll, obviously. At the end of the month, Chris would go on a date with Catherine, where Chris would do a tour of his rental house. In September, Chris would start selling customized merchandise. This would have lasting benefits. In October, Chris would spurg the fuck out of the fact that Sega had changed Sonic's arms to blue. And a month later, Chris would encourage his followers to boycott Sega and riot in the streets and vandalize Sega property. The day after Christmas, Chris would be arrested for pepper spraying and assisting at GameStop for one of his acts of protest. In January, the repairs on his house were finished and he'd moved back into his old house. In May of 2015, it was revealed that Chris was possibly taking hormone replacement pills and would soon after begin using the name Christine and going by female pronouns, which I will not be respecting! In the following month, he would attend his final court case and be charged with $541 for the pepper spray incident. In January of 2016, Chris would advertise his idea of a lesbian sleepover party to the internet, and surprisingly, no one was interested. In July, after watching hours worth of male-to-female hypnosis videos on YouTube, Chris would begin to believe that his China was forming beneath his taint. So Chris would use a knife and cut it out of his body. Members of the Kiwi Farms would start begging Chris to receive medical attention because an injury like this could easily have killed him. Luckily, after enough convincing, Chris would go see a doctor. In August, Chris would defend incest on Facebook and would admit to having sexual dreams about Barb.
In the business, we call this foreshadowing.
In November of 2016, Donald Trump, or as Chris would know him, would be elected president of the United States.
Chris was not pleased
And would start uploading death threats towards Trump. During this time, it was discovered that most of the money Chris gained through eBay was going to video games and toys instead of paying off Chris and Barb's tens of thousands of dollars of debt. In late March, Chris would start filming... In late March, Chris would start flirting with Planet Dolan artist Doopy-Doo. In April, Barb's account was overdrawn by $800. So to get some quick cash, Chris sold a Sonic Totem on eBay for $1,500 and immediately spent $750 in Skylanders and $400 on a gold necklace instead of actually paying off the $800. In April, Chris would do some archaeological digging and unearth the ancient artifact known as the Classic, after it was thought to be lost in the house fire of 2014. 2 months later, Chris would create an original character for My Little Pony known as Nightstar, who is yet another wish fulfillment Mary Sue self-insert character. In August, Chris would subscribe to Doopy-Doo-Over's pornographic Patreon account. Good idea, Chris. Buy porn while you're in extreme debt. Great idea. 4 days later, Doopy would create a Kiwi Farms account and would detail Chris stalking her Twitter accounts and flirting with her through her business email. In September, a white knight known as Jessica Quinn would start a relationship with Chris. Side note, let's take a look at Jessica Quinn's liked Facebook pages, shall we? Wow. In October, Chris would finish Sonichu issue number 12, which involves Rosa
amazing.
getting fucking fat! Thanks, Jessica! I really needed to see that. That same month, Jessica's account was allegedly hacked by trolls, causing Chris to make a cool, calm, collective video in response to the situation. In November, Chris would be introduced to the Hyperdimension Neptune franchise.
This was terrible. This was fucking terrible.
Consequences.
And would begin posting some very out-of-character things on his Twitter. Little did anyone know, behind the scenes, Chris was being manipulated by a man named Jessica Wise, who would form a cohort of trolls known as the Idea Guys. Wise would contact Chris role-playing as John Yamada and told Chris his old Sega Dreamcast had a portal to Quickfill and that the lore of Hyperdimension Neptunia was actually real. Joshua would manipulate Chris into thinking the world of Quickfill was real by pretending to be characters from Chris's world and using these characters as leverage against him to do stupid shit. In January, Chris would go to MagFest after hearing they had planned a panel about his life. This would be one of the few times where Chris seemed genuinely happy. During this time, Chris would keep uploading videos at the hands of the Idea Guys. Eventually, Kiwi Farms would investigate the manipulation taking place and would find Joshua Wise's personal information and publicize it.
But it was futile.
In March, Chris would announce that his love quest had finally ended. He was now in a polyamorous marriage with Lieutenant Magician and Frizzell Rosechew. On 4/20,
the funny weed day,
the Idea Guys' manipulation would reach its peak after a group shot was made where they roleplayed torturing Frizzell. Keep in mind that from Chris's perspective, he's watching his wife have her limbs blown off. It's pretty fucked. If that wasn't bad enough, the next day he was forced to film himself jerking off while singing All-Star. During this time, Kiwi Farms users Marvin, Noel, and the Captain would form a group known as the Guard Dogs to protect Chris against the Idea Guys, and shortly after would successfully get Chris to cut ties with the Idea Guys. Even though Chris was free from their control, the effects of their manipulation would last forever. 3 months later, Noel revealed the extent of the damage the Idea Guys had done to Chris. Apparently, the Idea Guys had extorted over $6,000 out of Chris. During the summer of 2018, Chris would start becoming more and more fascinated with the concept of alternate dimensions. And in October, would upload a video announcing the beginning of what he calls the dimensional merge. This is where shit gets really confusing, so pay attention. The dimensions 1218, the dimension we live in, and the dimension C197, the world where all fictional characters reside in, will combine to form a larger dimension known as 1C-211987 on the 31st of December of that year, and that Chris was responsible for all these dimensions colliding successfully. And not only that, but Chris is a
doesn't make any sense.
CPU, which is a goddess that represents a game console. And Chris is the goddess of the Commodore 64. This is based off the idea of Guy's manipulation with the Hyperdimension Neptunia franchise. Basically, TLDR, Chris is God and is gonna make Sonichu in real life. He also mentioned that Megan
Don't try to understand the minds of the insane.
Too, because she just can't get a fucking break, can she? Chris would scour the entire internet trying to find Megan to tell her that she's actually an anime goddess. Megan responded by telling Chris never contact her again and that she keeps that motherfucking thing on her. Around this time, Chris would start smoking weed with a group of teenagers known as the Teen Squad. And if you're wondering why I censored that last word, it's because apparently that's a slur or something. The Teen Squad were a bunch of
he's on like quite more wookie qualifications.
During December, they would leak a number of videos, including one of Chris making out with Grizel. After the 31st of December came and went, without any signs of the dimensions.
Yeah, I bet that on his stories like of portals and dimensions, the key thing for you to transport to another dimension is weed.
Chris would push back the date of the merge due to damn.
No. He's using weed while we sorry to medallion.
That's my Chris impression. An enabler named MKR Nightview would get in contact with Chris and would cuddle his delusions about the dimensional merge by saying that she too was a CPU goddess of the Nintendo Switch console. Apparently her goal with Chris is to give him moral support and to better him. During this month, large creators Chris interacted with would start blocking him on Twitter, which caused Chris to have an absolute fucking meltdown, comparing it to his trauma of being abused in his childhood at Nathaniel Green Elementary. In March, Chris uploaded a video of a package he received from yet another group of enablers, Sarah and Steve, who sent him a Nintendo Switch along with a note detailing their plans to move to Virginia with specific instructions to not let this letter get leaked online. Chris seemed to realize that he accidentally leaked the note on video, so he took the video down, then re-uploaded it immediately after, with nothing altered and the note still clearly visible. At around this time, a man named Jacob Sockness was getting attention online, who is a psychopathic, autistic, evil wizard man who is in love with Chris and claims to be possessed by the god of war and death, Jacoba, and claims to kill homeless people with magic.
It only keeps getting worse and worse.
And the species known as the Rocat and the
what? A demon Takoba apparently usurped the throne of God of the galaxy and creation destruction or some crap like that. Heavy such an antagonist I called in a favor from Mary, Sue, and my Gabbies too. They both Minecrafted and exiled Jacoba and claimed the throne. They plan to bestow the title later to someone most worthy and trustworthy. They left an indestructible statue of themselves on the throne. I also get a vote on who fills the seat, even though this was I don't know what is that ENC 197 like 197 in sequence within less than 48 hours from the death and exile of C197's Jacoba 1118's Jacoba from all timelines permanently die and fade away from the existence, making Mary and Gary the temp gods through everywhere.
Not God Jacoba would be accepted as fact in Chris's mind.
What
this
the
month would see Chris's
fuck?
mental state drop to new
What
lows.
the
Magic
fuck?
Shan would possess Chris's fucking body and would upload videos of himself talking to prove his body was possessed by Magic Shan. During the time his body was possessed, Chris's soul would apparently be in California with Sockness, where they would arrange to have Sockness visit him in his home. For hearing this, Kiwi Farms would start digging deeper into Sockness' background and would discover statements of him saying that if Chris didn't accept his sexual advances, he would rape him. Fortunately for the world, Chris and Sockness were too stupid to plan something out, so they get into an argument which ends up with Jacob not visiting him. Chris later claimed Sockness was corrupted by evil. Then a short time after would become friends with Sockness again and plan to meet up on Halloween, which doesn't end up happening because both of them are very lazy and stupid. In the beginning of November, Sockness would get Chris to believe that Noel, the person who was actually trying to help him, was the devil incarnate. In March of 2020, the US would go into lockdown because of the coronavirus, which would make Chris's jimmies extremely rustled because he couldn't go to the Brony convention BabsCon to cope with the entire outside world being shut down. Not that he interacted with it much anyways. Chris would cope by swapping bodies with Sonichu. Pause. So from this point on, if I say Chris did this or Chris did that, I'm referring to Sonichu and Chris's body, but obviously Sonichu is not real, but it makes more
Okay. This creator here, this channel creator, BigBoy Meatl0af. He deserves some headpads for creating all of this and not becoming like insane in the end of it. At least like just a bit, like just a bit. But it's impossible to like make a timeline like this and doesn't end up like having some brain damage in the end. So headpads for you. I hope you get better and recover from Sonichu history. It's complicated.
More sense for the lore. In July of 2020, Chris' Sonichu had finally cut off contact with Sockness, and a month later, Chris would release an updated house tour. In October, Chris would meet with a group of enablers known as the Praetors, who would coddle Chris' delusions and would sell Sonichu merch, with Chris getting a cut of the profit. Also in October, Chris would make first contact with a woman named Isabella Loretta Janke.
This would have the most lasting of consequences.
In October, Bella would create an animated intro for Chris. In February of 2021, Chris and the Praetors would start selling custom Sonichu medallions. Later in February, Chris would have the idea of using a stun gun to tase a quartz crystal to activate the dimensional merge. This idea is retarded, but thankfully the Praetors convinced Chris not to do it. And at the end of the month, Chris would finally cease being possessed by Sonichu. Around the time of Chris returning to himself, conversations with Bella would become more and more regular, with her planning to manipulate him into killing himself. In April, Chris would receive his government stimulus check and spend it all on magic rocks. Chris would also get vaccinated this month.
Hail Fauci! Hail Fauci! Hail Fauci!
During the early summer of 2021, Chris would start mentioning his lust for a new sweetheart in this dimension, and shortly after would allude to having found his new sweetheart in this dimension. Unfortunately for the human race, Chris would reveal to Bella on an audio call that his new sweetheart in this dimension was actually his own mother. On the 29th of July, all hell would break loose. The user LB would leak the audio of Chris admitting to having sex with his own mother, and the next day Chris would be removed from his house by social services. During this time, the internet would be set on fire, and the phrase "Chris Chan did what?" became number one trending on Twitter, with thousands and thousands of posts detailing the news. And the next day, Chris would be arrested by jerk cops at an inn in Richmond. Shortly after the leak, Kiwi Farms would begin investigating the woman on the phone with Chris in the leaked audio. There's a lot more
that's
lore
the video
about her,
that
and
we
she's
react
really
to.
yucky, so go somewhere else to learn the stuff. Chris would begin the first of many court dates relating to his affair with his mother. Over a month later, Chris would send a letter to the Knoll of the Kiwi Farms detailing how Chris is actually Jesus. In October, trolls would start sending letters to Chris trying to get him to convert to Islam,
what the
which were unsuccessful. In February, the court would deem Chris too noted and schizo to stand a trial. During this time, Chris would be sending letters and drawings to the outside world with some of the most insane shit I've ever seen in my life, including Chris claiming that he is Jesus and now goes by Christ Chan. And in March, Chris would be out of custody. The website Vineland would list Chris as bonded out, but would be quickly changed to released by court order. And as of now, Chris has gone completely dark for the first time in decades.
Before we go any further, I want to take this brief moment here to thank all of you, my patrons, that support my work here on YouTube, and especially my 5-tail Fox Tire member, Zalost, and my 3-tail Fox Tire members, Heath Rowell, Fenny Sylvy, and Radmuiel, for the incredible support to my work. Thank you very, very much. You guys are amazing. Also, thanks to everyone who donated to me through Tron and to all of my YouTube members. You can support this channel live and grow with just $5 a month and gain access to many perks. This is less than a burrito. Check out my Patreon. Link is in the description below. Oh my god, what to say? The guys keep getting worse. What is the next thing that he's gonna do? Oh no, I'm even terrified of thinking about it. Oh my god, there's no way it can get even worse. And thank everyone for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Check the links below, pages, Squad, Tron, and Ko-Fi. Oh my god. I can't believe this. I see you all in the next one. Bye.